Hello everyone, we have a game with the black pieces against Maximilian, rated 1045. And he plays e4. Let's try to get a Caro Kann. We play c6. He plays d4, and now we play d5 going into a Caro Kann. He plays the advanced variation, gaining space. We play bishop out to f5, developing a piece towards the center. And white counters our bishop with his own. As black in the Caro Kann, we're generally happy to trade all the pieces and go into an endgame. So in this position, we're simply going to take his light square bishop, which is the main attacker for white in the Caro Kann. So we happily take it. He takes with the queen, and now we don't want him to play e6. We play e6 ourselves, creating this light square pawn structure of mini bishops, and our dark square bishop can go somewhere else. So he develops a piece towards the center, maybe trying to discourage c5. That makes sense. If you can trade queens in the Caro Kann and go into an endgame, you're always happy to do that because you immediately equalize. And you can play a minority attack, possibly. So one of the things that we can do here, now that his queen is here, is we can do this weird sequence of moves that's forcing in a way. Queen a5 develops a piece for free because it comes with check. But the real idea behind this move is not to give a check, and it's not to attack on the dark squares. It's to get your queen to a different square, but for free. Like if I said I wanted to go to a4, you can't move there from the home square. But because of this check, you can get there in one turn, right? So that's the reason we're doing it. But we don't want to go to there. We want to go to a6. Why do we want to go to a6? Because we're offering this queen trade. And if he doesn't want the queen trade, he's giving you complete control of this light square diagonal. And there are no longer light squared bishops on the board. So he doesn't want to give you this diagonal, which would also make it harder for him to castle. And if he does trade, he develops a minor piece for you that supports your c5 pawn break. So you get the best of both worlds down this sequence when they play the move bishop d3 and let you trade the way he did. It's not challenging. So he's letting us queen trade. We are going to take it because we like to trade as black and go into endgames. If you don't like endgames, don't play the Caro Kann. He takes back, ruining this pawn structure, creating weaknesses in his position, and targets. So now we don't have to do anything crazy. And now, when you normally want to play c5, it does help him undouble his pawns. So you might want to look at other options. So first, let's just get our pieces out. Maybe. I think moving one of the knights makes a lot of sense. Um, I mean, it's kind of up to you, but let's just move this knight. It puts pressure on the e5 point, which could be nice. So we could go with c5, which is normally what you want to do. But he did make this weird pawn structure, and it's giving me a little bit of hesitation that we might have just better ways to take advantage of these in a long game, in an end game. So let's keep developing our knights. Let's get our minor pieces in the game. Okay, so now he goes b4, saying, hey, you didn't play c5, you're never going to. But every time you move a pawn, you create weaknesses. So I'm not really worried about this, right? Also, even this pawn is a target in and of itself. I have a good mind to play a5, and I'm going to. I'm going to give him my a5 pawn to develop my rook, but instead he lets me take it. And the thing is, I'm going to take it because it opens up my rook A, and he can't capture with the pawn because his rook hangs behind it, B. And if he has to take with the bishop, well then I can get in a c5 one day if I want it, because It's not two pawns clamping down, it's a piece. So, different story. Okay, so for the time being, we can continue developing. This knight should probably maybe pressure the position. That's a thing. Um, okay, that seems reasonable. We're just improving a piece with a threat, so it's for free. What's the threat? The threat is bishop takes bishop, and if he recaptures, his rook hangs. So it's a forcing move. It doesn't look forcing, but it is forcing. And you see he doesn't notice it because he probably looked at the knight and said, oh, this pawn's defended. But the hidden threat was actually bishop takes bishop. And I'm curious to know what the computer thinks about c5. I mean, it probably wants you to do it, but I'm curious about what other ways to play exist in that position. Because that's just you thinking for yourself. That's not common Caro Kann ideas. Um, okay, so he moves the rook. He notices that his rook's hanging, but this doesn't create any threats as my pawn chain is unbreakable because he has no pawn breaks and untargetable, so I don't know why his rook is here. Um, we have so many different moves, I don't know which one to make. You could just castle and leave this hanging like a boss. I think let's do that. It's the coolest looking move, right? And okay, aside now that we're done with the cool looking moves, I mean, we can leave this hanging here as long as his rooks aren't connected. So if he never moves the knight, we never have to move the bishop. And if we do move the bishop, I'm thinking this route. Why? To pressure the pawn. Seems supernatural. But we don't have to because he moves his knight. What does this threaten? Nothing. I guess he wants to go in here, but that's not a threat. And the drawback is it undefends these squares. So I'm immediately going to take the pawn, which he undefended. And now this isn't even supported by a pawn because I took it. Not only that, but that pawn was protecting this central pawn, so it all collapses in spectacular fashion. So he moves the king because he notices this threat, but that's really the least of his problems. And of course, we're going to bring our other knight into the center. Free stuff. With the threat for free. So he attacks the knight, but does not consider the knight jumps. The potential knight jumps, such as this, winning more free stuff. I'm actually setting up, I'm not taking the pawn, not taking the rook, but knight here, which hits the rook, followed by knight here, checkmate. When was the last time you saw a two-knight checkmate? A two-knight, does that even count as a smothered mate? I guess not, but it kind of is. It's really cool checkmate. Hopefully you guys can visualize with a knight here and a knight here, that's just checkmate, right? It's kind of cool. Okay, so he protects the pawn. He definitely doesn't see the mate. He's protecting the pawn. And you can try to win material, but I really want to try to go for the mate. So I'm going to just, I mean, you could do whatever you want. Notice how my bishop's still hanging, which is hilarious. But he can't move this knight to connect the rooks because then this hangs. So he's just in a world of hurt. I'm going to improve my knight for free because now it looks like I'm attacking the pawn twice. But I'm really just setting up for my checkmate. I just want to deflect this rook somehow. But I don't think I can. Either way, my knights are both clearly active. Okay, so he moves his rook and hits the knight. But this, I mean, this pawn is hanging for starters. I'll just take it. I mean, why not? I have to move it anyway. And now we're up 7 points of material. Our pawn structure is perfectly harmonious. We have the dark square bishop going through. Okay, so now he's retreating the knight so he can move this knight, but his rook's still hanging because his rooks are never going to be connected. So it's just a really funny construction. And our knights, I don't really want them defending each other. Um, I'm just going to push in the center. It happens to defend the knight. I can also keep pushing. I have 3 connected passed pawns right here, which is a huge win condition in and of itself, worth a ton. So he attacks the knight. Okay, no problem if we want to move it. But before I move it, let's hit his rook. See what he does. He can take the knight and get 2 pieces, which normally would be good, but because for the rook. But because I'm up 7 points of material, he doesn't want to be making trades. So he moves the rook out of the way, attacks this knight, saying, hey, both of your knights are under attack. It's reasonable. What can we do? What cold moves do we have? I guess we can just keep attacking the rook. So we have a few moves, but let's go with bishop c5. Finally moving it, hitting the rook again. So he can't keep attacking our knights, so we're not actually in any trouble. Still a good try by white, but we're far too active for anything to work for him. Okay, so he moves his rook, threatening this pawn and potentially our knight. We lost our little checkmating constructions, but that's okay. Maybe I can find a different one. You could jump your knight here, you could jump your knight here. So many options. They're all good. It's really a personal choice. I guess I'm just going to go to the center on a protected square. Cutting off his rook. What are you going to do? It's good enough. So he goes pawn hunting, which is the exact opposite thing he should be doing when he has both of his knights on the back rank. So since he loves pawn hunting, I'm going to let him take as many pawns as he wants because I'm a nice guy. You could put a rook on the b file and challenge him immediately and then try to infiltrate down the 7th. That's effective. You can also just run the f pawn off the board, developing your rook and opening a way towards his king. So he's going for pawns, as I mentioned, because I knew he would. I'm going to give him as many pawns as he wants. He's moving the same piece 10 times, only to take pawns. Okay, as predicted. Now, you can push and you have just crazy passed pawns. You could also just open up the king. I'm just going to open up the rook with no calculation. You know, an open rook can't be bad. And now we can infiltrate this way. So it's another option. So I say we can bring the rook in. Might as well take the knight while we're at it because he never developed. So when I opened up the file, yes, you could infiltrate, but since he's hanging the knight, let's take it. Now we have so many pieces that there has to be some type of checkmate, you know, if we can find it. So this forces one of these, and I mean, that has to be pretty good. But also this looks pretty good. Let's go with this one because I'm running out of time and I don't feel like thinking or don't have time to think. And then let's create some type of checkmate, like cover this square and then maybe this and this. So he takes a bishop, but don't we have checkmate somewhere? I mean, this is checkmate. He stops it. I don't know. I only have 12 seconds, so I'm just going to do this construction, and that should be checkmate. Okay. Yeah, you have so many pieces. It's got to be checkmate somewhere. Of course, if you have, adequate time, you can find the proper checkmate. But even when you rush and make random moves, it finds itself, so that's always nice. Ooh, 98%. Nice. That's a banger. Does it even show? No, you can't even see all the black. It's all just black. So we get a Caro Kann, advanced Caro Kann, and the main move is to bring the bishop outside of the pawn chain. That's the whole point of the Caro Kann. And a lot of players will immediately do this, but this gives you the sequence that we got in the game. And I mean, you just take it. You just take it because this bishop is a nuisance and it can always be harassed, giving your opponent free tempi. You only put it here so that you can close the pawn chain and it's not a terrible bishop. So we're more than happy to trade it for bishop, even for a knight. But if you can take this bishop, the bishop is never aiming at your king. So it's a win-win. So we take it. And then you never want to allow e6 in any of the lines of the Caro Kann. So you always play it first. And because his queen's here, his queen is acting like a replacement light squared bishop. So what we do is we throw in this check because he didn't, like if he played a move like c3, you don't have this check. So although you can still try to do like queen a5 and queen a6 like I did in the game, he might have stuff like this and c4, and he may be able to prevent that idea. But because he left this diagonal open, and I know I can get this basically in one move because it comes with check, and now this doesn't stop it because we just go queen a6 next. It's weird what he did. He just developed and let me double his pawns. Usually what players do is they either trade thinking it's a fair trade, or they move the queens to avoid the trade. And a move like queen g3 looks really good because it puts pressure. You can't develop the bishop without hanging stuff. But the downside is it gives me the whole diagonal. Now my queen is acting like a replacement light square bishop, and it's going to be hard for him to contest. He also can't castle unless he puts a knight on an awkward square. So it's a really, you immediately equalize as black. It's done. It's over. You're equal. So it's just a nice move. So that's why I threw it in. And he didn't take, so we take. Now his pawn structure is ruined. We have a permanent advantage. So here, if he did not have a second d pawn, he only had this one d pawn right here, I would say immediately go to c5 and then put the knight on c6 and break down the center. But because he has the second pawn, I was like, you could go c5, but there's got to be other moves. So okay, so yeah, you can develop the knights, you can play c5 or run any of the rook pawns for development in space. So it all makes sense. So we develop the knight, then we develop the other knight. I'm curious if even here it like really wants c5, and no, it doesn't. Very interesting. I had a feeling that although it was playable, you had other options. So we just keep developing towards the center. And now he tries to put a clamp on it. And we play a5, breaking it down, trying to gain space. And this is obviously inaccurate because the rook is hanging behind it. So we take, gaining further control over the center and extended center. And then we improve a piece for free because it comes with a threat, which he does not notice. And we're winning. King safety. Free stuff. Free stuff. Free stuff. Improving move for free. Free stuff. And just an improving move in the center, pushing the passed pawn. Easy way to win a game. You have lots of moves there, but this one is good enough. You see how we just leave stuff on so it's a forcing move that I was trying to force him into trading stuff because we were up so much material. And then we improve a piece for free. Then we improve a piece forced. And notice how a lot of you guys would be worried about these pawns. But why? Who cares? He takes it, but he's not moving the other pieces. And look at our knights in his position. Our bishop. Like, you can't be caring about pawns here. And then this pawn, I don't even want it. That's why I pushed it, because I just want my rook in the game. So I just want to chuck this pawn off the board. So the fastest way is to keep pushing it. So that's what I do. It's minus 10. Look, he keeps taking pawns now. Mate and 2. Here, here, here. Wait, here, here. Oh, that is checkmate. Wow, cool. Look at that. You had a mate in 2, but I even said I'm just going to take the pawn and open the rook with no calculation. Well, that's the downside to no calculation. And I mean, obviously the game's over. It's still mate in 6. And I kind of made random moves and it found itself. Um, See, there's a mate in 3 from here, but it's not what I did. I took the roundabout way because I had 30 seconds. I'm sure if you use the knights accurately, there's probably a faster mate or something, but either way, we close him in. We find this little construction with 11 seconds on our clock, and we get a perfect game out of it. So now you have a different chunk. A lot of people will play this against you, and now you know about the queen a5, queen a6 idea. You just learned something new that immediately equalizes or gives you the advantage if he gives you the diagonal. So, or if he did what he did in the game, unless you double his pawns. So, you just learned something cool, something easy that makes sense. Caro Kann. Good luck in your chess. Submit your rapid games in my Discord. Goodbye.